Are we live? I just want to make sure that we can see each other and everyone is here who's meant to be here. I'm Renee and we're in my kitchen right now, and today's online class is all about making soup dumplings. I love soup dumplings. Is one of my favorite things to eat whenever I go to a Shanghainese restaurant. Soup dumplings are very comforting and I basically can eat them every day of my life. So thanks for joining us. Today's class is soup dumplings, but one thing really special about today's class is we're going to make them with a gluten-free wrapper. So those of you who are celiac, who have friends who have gluten intolerance or can't eat gluten themselves, this is something that you can make at home and invite everyone over to have a dumpling party. And I've created this gluten-free wrapper that you can make at home from scratch without going out of your way for too much. But I also am coming up with my own gluten-free dumpling flour mix very, very soon at the shop. I am gonna be opening at the shop very, very soon, and the whole shop would be comprised of all things sugar-free, so no added sugars in all the menu items and all the store items, but it is also going to be all gluten-free and vegetarian. Today's class will be made with the meat version of the gluten-free soup dumpling, but you can always substitute the meat with some tofu or some chickpeas, okay? So let's go ahead and start because we're already 2 minutes in, and I want to welcome you all. I'm Renee. I'm a registered dietitian in Vancouver, BC, Canada. I've been teaching cooking classes for about five and a half years now, and we do a lot of healthy Asian cooking. And today we're going to do a gluten-free soup dumpling. All right, so those of you who signed up for class, thank you for your donation. I really appreciate it. Let's go into some detail of the ingredients that we have here. And I like to go into the ingredients of the soup base. So if you don't have a bouillon or veggie bouillon, you can do a mushroom bouillon. You can also do any type of vegetable stock that you have too, or chicken stock. So today we have some chicken stock that mushroom stock. So I'm going to add about 2 teaspoons of that into a mixing bowl. All right. And before you start anything, I like that you guys can go into your kitchen and grab yourself a pot, and we have about 2 cups of water on the stove boiling. So you can start by doing that. We need boiling water for everything. So it doesn't have to be measured, as long as around 2 cups of water. Go ahead and fill your pot with some water and then start boiling it. Okay, so add a lid on that makes it faster when you boil. All right, and then we can go into more ingredients after the water is boiled. So we have a little bit of salt, we have some cooking oil. Oil can be either vegetable oil, it could be soybean oil, it could be peanut oil, it could be even olive oil. I wouldn't use extra virgin olive oil or else it turn everything a little bit of a green tinge. And you're welcome to send me some comments. You can type them in the comment section below and I'll try my best to answer them as I see them come up. Or you can email me info@TrueNosh.com after the class and I'll get to you guys as soon as possible. The video will be up for about 48 hours. You guys can also review all the things that we talked about or rewind the video right now to start from the beginning. So I have some salt, some cooking oil, we have some xanthan gum for the flour, we have a little bit of psyllium husk. Psyllium husk is a awesome fiber, which it actually helps bind things together and is a soluble fiber, and also is a really good prebiotic. So we have some white pepper. Here, if you don't have white pepper, you can substitute it with black pepper. I like white pepper because it's more gingery. And then we have a little bit of ginger, so we're going to grate the ginger into the filling. And then whatever soup stock or bouillon you have, we're just going to add boiling water to it and stir it with a little bit of gelatin. So I have a package of gelatin in here. If you don't have gelatin, you can use some agar base. So both are quite easily found in a regular grocery store near the baking aisle, okay? So the water is boiling quick, and I want to add about half the amount of gelatin in this. So this is about 1 whole tablespoon. I'm going to add half a tablespoon to my bowl with my veggie bouillon powder in here. And then my water is already boiling, okay? And if you need a little bit more time, wait for the water to boil first. And then I'm going to add about half a cup. So you want to get a measuring spoon of hot water. Yeah, you can also do this over the stove as well. And then you just want to make sure that all the liquid and the soup has melted and dissolved into the hot water. So I'm going to come over here and show you guys. You can use a whisk or a spoon, whatever you want. Make sure all the liquid has dissolved all the powder and the soup is looking quite like a clear soup again. So that means all the gelatin has dissolved. What you want to do after all the gelatin has dissolved, you want to find like a pan or a plate that's got a little warp shape, and you want to pour that liquid into the pan. Okay. And then we want to put this pan in the freezer because we want the soup to solidify, and when we make the dumplings, it's easier for us to spoon out the soup and put it on top, and then when we cook it, the soup will melt and become the soup in the soup dumplings. So you guys all know that there is a lot of places that have a lot of soup because they actually add a lot of liquid into that dumpling mix. And what we're going to do is wait for this guy to solidify in the freezer. Don't forget it. If you have a little bit more time, then put it in the fridge. Wait about an hour or two, and this will become a solid soup, okay? So the freezer just saves you a little bit of time, but if you over freeze it, it's just going to get really, really hard. I'll be right back. Okay, so now that we made the soup and put it in the freezer, we're going to forget about it for at least 15-20 minutes. So we're going to let that soup solidify. And now we're going to make the filling, because we want to let the filling kind of absorb all the ingredients that we add in and allow it to marinate for a little bit. So get a mixing bowl. We have a little bit of ground pork. You can add some lean ground pork, and because we're doing this at home, you can find a nice, good quality pork from the grocery store, and you can also pick the amount of fat, right, the percentage of fat in your pork. And for those who are trying to, maintain a healthy weight, try to get something with lower fat content, all right? So this is about 400 to 500 grams of ground pork. And what we're gonna do, we're gonna add a little bit of ground white pepper. As I said, if you don't have white pepper, you can use black pepper. White pepper is just a little bit more gingery, and it gives that a really nice flavor for the meat. So I'm going to add about a quarter teaspoon of the ground white pepper, and I can already smell the wonderful aroma that comes off of the ground white pepper. And then with the ginger, you want to grate the ginger, or you can mince it really, really finely. If you have a grater, go ahead and grab your grater. I have a pretty nice grater here. Make sure that you don't grate your fingertips off, okay? and watch where you're grating. We want to grate about 1 tablespoon of ginger into our meat. Okay, and I use the whole skin also, so make sure that you wash your ginger really well. I like to keep the skin because the skin has a lot of fiber and actually a lot of antioxidants. All right, so let's grate the ginger into the bowl. I love the smell of fresh ground ginger. It's so invigorating. Ginger is also an anti-inflammatory food as well. Okay, so that's about 1 tablespoon of ginger. You can save this for the dipping sauce for later. If you want to add some grated ginger to the dipping sauce, that's great. And then what we're going to do is add a little bit of salt, okay? And in the last few episodes that we made a regular soup dumpling, we also used some of my own hoisin sauce. You can use that too if you bought some of that online. Follow us, or you can visit our website, TrueNosh.com. You can find all my Asian sauce line made with black garlic and all gluten-free and sugar-free. You can add 1 tablespoon of that instead of a half a teaspoon of salt. So I also like to add a little bit of Chinese cooking wine, the Shaoxing cooking wine, into our meat. And I'm going to go grab that and be right back. Right. So this is the Shaoxing cooking wine. And usually what I do is add 1 capful of the cooking wine into my meat. All right, 1 capful is about a tablespoon worth of the cooking wine. And that's it. So we're going to stir this guy around with a mixing spoon. And what you want to do, you can use your hands if you want, but it's fine just mixing it around with your mixing bowl. Using your hands just makes it a lot more fun. It's really about getting dirty and having fun in the kitchen, right? So this is all done. You can let it marinate and sit for about 10 minutes before we wrap some soup dumplings. And if you have extra filling left, right, you can always freeze it or make fried rice with it. So it's a lot of fun, not just making soup dumplings or dumplings. You can use this for a lot of other things as well. Okay, so make sure all the marinade and seasoning has incorporated into the meat. And we're going to let it sit for about 10 minutes before we use it. Now, we're going to get some things ready before we make the filling. So I want to introduce you to this Chinese steaming basket. This is made with bamboo. If you don't have one of these, you can just use a regular plate and it's perfectly fine. What you want to get ready is a big pot. I have a big pot over here. And I filled this pot about a quarter way full of water. And then once that happens, I will find either a rack like this, or you can find a really big bowl and flip it upside down to be the platform for your steaming basket or your plate. So as you can see here, the basket just fits on top of the rack. If you have a big bowl that's upside down, the basket will just also fit on top, or a nice plate. And what you want to do to line the basket, you can either put in a layer of parchment paper, or what I like to do is cut any type of vegetables to use as the liner for my dumplings. And I'm going to do that right now before we start anything, because once we make the wrapper, we actually have to start wrapping quite soon. All right, so let me just cut off some of the carrots and into nice little circles. You can use bok choy. You can also use like daikon. You can use a lot of different flat leaf vegetables to line the bottom of your plate or your steamer basket. It doesn't really matter what you use as long as the soup dumpling doesn't stick to the bottom of your tray. Okay, so I'm just going to line my soup dumpling basket with a little bit of carrots. And this will give your dumplings great moisture, and also it will be really nice for photos later on when you are done wrapping your soup dumplings. So those of you who just joined us, I see there are a few people. You can always rewind the video and start from the beginning if you missed some of the ingredients. Okay, so this is my platform for my dumplings to sit on later, and I'm just going to put that aside. And then what I want to do is, now with the remainder of the boiling water, I want to put it back on the stove and turn it on high again. And you want really, really hot water for the soup dumpling wrapper, especially with the gluten-free dough. You don't want just par hot water. You want really, really hot boiling water. And I mean that, or else your soup dumpling wrapper will not work. The gluten-free wrapper really counts on your water being super, super hot, okay? So get a nice clean mixing bowl, and what we're going to do is we're going to measure out the gluten-free wrappers. So those of you who got the email, if you signed up or donated to watch this class, and you will know which ingredients to prepare before you signed on to the Facebook Live page. What I want you to get is a scale, all right? So my water's already boiling. I'm going to turn it down to low, and once I need it, I'll turn it back up high again. You want to put the bowl on the scale and make sure you tare it so the bowl is already measured and you're not measuring the bowl. So we have some white rice flour. We also have some glutinous rice flour. They're different. White rice flour, just regular white rice blended and powdered. Glutinous rice is a glutinous, so it's T-I-N and not T-E-N. So there's no gluten, which everybody is trying to avoid today in our class. It's T-I-N, which means it's very chewy and it's got a really specific texture. So there's no gluten, T-E-N, in glutinous rice, which is really, really funny why they named it that way. But these are both rice, and you know that there's no gluten in any of the rice flour. And what I changed up with, usually it's wheat starch, but I changed up the recipe for a lot of my gluten-free recipes is using tapioca starch. And if you're joining us for our mooncake class, which is coming up in a few weeks, you'll know the difference in different flours that we're going to be using for the mooncake wrapper. So we're going to use tapioca starch for the wrapper also. Tapioca is actually a root vegetable that's grown in Latin America as well as Southeast Asia. And it's a really nice root vegetable. You can put it in soup. You can actually crush it up and make a mash out of it. And it's usually flown from like Latin America or Southeast Asia with a layer of wax on it. So you do want to take the skin off of the tapioca. Another name for that is cassava or yucca. And it's the same type of plant. So tapioca starch is also what we use to make the bubbles of bubble tea. All right, so we need that. You need some psyllium husk fiber. We talked about that as a prebiotic, and it's also a really good fiber source. And then some xanthan gum. And for the wrapper, you will need a little bit of oil as well. All right, so let's tar that scale. We're going to add 110 grams of white flour, okay? So make sure you wash the scale. 110 grams of white flour. Okay. white rice flour. Okay. And then we're going to go into the glutinous rice flour, and that is 95 grams. Okay, and then our last flour is the tapioca starch flour, and that is 120 grams. This recipe makes quite a lot of wrappers, about 40 different wrappers, but you can also keep it in a Ziploc bag and you can use it again tomorrow. So you don't have to use all the wrapping flour at once. Okay, so now we have 120 grams of the tapioca flour. And then what I want to do is add 20 grams of the cooking oil. Okay, and then now we got to go and find our xanthan gum, which binds all the things together. And xanthan gum is about 1 gram of xanthan gum. Very little, goes a long way. Okay, and then now, after the xanthan gum goes in, is the psyllium husk fiber, and I found that this made such a big difference after I added it, because before, without the psyllium husk, you actually have to use the dough super, super quick or else it dries out. But with the psyllium husk, because it's a soluble fiber, it absorbs all the water really quickly and nicely and keeps the whole dough moist, and I love it. So what you're going to add here is about 5 grams of psyllium husk fiber. Okay, so that is all the ingredients we have in our dumpling wrapper, except we need to add in a water. So it's really boiling right now, okay? And I want you guys to make sure that it's super, super hot before you add it to the dough. And you also need to measure this. So tare your scale, and you want 250 grams of boiling water. Make sure you watch your scale because water is heavy and you don't want to overdo it with the water. Okay, and once you pour the really hot water in, it should gel your wrapper quite nicely. All right, and then you want to start mixing it with a spatula right away. So I have either a spatula or a wooden spoon, and what you want to do is quickly stir it around. And it's going to look like there's not enough water, but give it a little bit of faith. Okay. This is a lot of wrapper, so be careful with touching it because we just poured really hot water in. So you want to give it some time to breathe and let the wrapper cool down before you touch it with your hands. Okay. And then now you want to gauge if it's cool enough. And if it still feels a little bit hot, just keep stirring and make sure that it's cool enough before you use your hands, or else you're going to burn yourself. Okay, so now that I feel a little bit safer using my fingers. I'm going to take all the flour off of my spoon, and I'm going to start compressing the flour with my hands and forming a nice dough ball and squishing it on my fingers to make it look like a cohesive dough ball. And I'm going to knead out all the powder that is in the dough. Okay, so this is a lot of dough. You can either half the recipe if you're making less dumplings, or you can save it into a few chunks and make dumplings for a few days. Okay, so now I'm squeezing this dough ball onto itself, and it looks like a really nice heavy ball, and that's exactly what you want to do. And you want to continue to knead it for about 2 to 3 minutes until it becomes a nice, soft, and smooth dough ball. And there are no powder pebbles in that dough. And you don't really need to knead it as long as you would for wheat flour because you're not forming any gluten. Okay, so you just need to make sure that it looks like a homogeneous dough ball. And there are no dried powder bits in there, and all of it is a cohesive, round, and smooth texture. Okay, so I'm going to come closer to the camera, and this is what it should look like. Okay, it's quite smooth, it's quite dense, and you can kind of feel it's like Play-Doh, all right? Okay, so what you want to do, because we're not using the whole thing, okay, so I'm just going to break off about a quarter of this, and this should make about 20 already, so this is kind of like 60 different dumplings. But you can save this in a Ziploc bag, and I'm going to use a Ziploc bag to make sure that no water escapes and keeps it hydrated. I'm going to stick it in the fridge, and this can last about 2 to 3 days in your fridge, okay? All right, so now we're done with our mixing bowl and our scale. We're going to need a surface for rolling out the dough. I'm going to put a lot of things away so that it's not in my way. What you want to keep on your surface is some oil, all right? This is interesting. You won't use oil for a regular dumpling flour, but for a gluten-free dumpling flour, you do want to use some oil, all right? And that's a little bit of an important tip for this recipe. Oil is necessary to keep the dough moist as well as keeping the dough not stick to all the surfaces. So what you want to do is make sure that you roll it out into a nice long sausage-like thing. And I'm going to like break it in half and make only 10 at a time. So with your fingers, you want to roll it out into like a nice cylindrical form, okay? So something like this. And then you want to break off about 10 pieces if you can. Or if you want to make them bigger, you can break them off into about 8 pieces, which would be easier to do. Okay, so now we have about 7 to 8 pieces, and we can start rolling them into balls. So sizes of a pebble is what you're looking for, and you want it to be round. You can get either a rolling pin like this, or you can use a nice soy sauce bottle, or you can use a wine bottle, and they work just as well. So now you're going to roll these guys into a nice spherical form. We're going to use this first. What you want to do is use a little bit of oil and massage your palms, and you want to roll each ball in a little bit of oil so it keeps it moist and you won't dry out. You also want to add a little bit of oil to your rolling pin, okay? So oil your surface that you're going to be also rolling your dough in as well. And you can do a practice round by rolling gently this way and turning the dough ball halfway. Each time you roll, you can turn it 90 degrees so it's a nice circular form. This is gluten-free, so it's not going to be as stretchy as a wheat flour because there's no gluten in it. Okay, and it's not going to be as malleable, so you can't stretch this dough as well. So I'm going to roll it as thin as possible, all right? So we want to wrap one at a time. So we want to roll and wrap at a time. So I'm going to take a look at the freezer. You remember that we looked at the freezer because we put the soup in the freezer, and we want to get that out. And I'm going to bring you guys closer to my working surface so we get a close-up on how I make the soup dumplings, okay? Give me 2 seconds. Okay, so our soup has solidified, you see, so perfect. And you want to get a spoon so you can grab some of the spoon out, okay? And it's a solidified soup. And now you can also go grab your meat mixture, which is the meat with the ginger and the white pepper and the Chinese cooking wine. Okay? And it's been marinating for about 10 minutes. And now we have a wrapper that's ready to be wrapped, and I'm going to bring you guys, so we want another spoon for your wrapper. So now I'm going to bring you guys closer to my station, and you can watch me wrap close up. Okay, so what you want to do is get your meat, place it close to you. Get your soup, also place it close to you. And then you're going to start wrapping. So bring the wrapper that's about the size of your palm, okay, on either your palm, or you can keep it on the table. And I actually like to keep it on the table. So let me just make it a little bit thinner. And then I'm going to spoon in a little bit of filling. Okay, you don't want too much filling. Okay, so make sure the filling, you have about 1 whole inch around the meat. And then now I'm going to spoon a little bit of the soup out. And I'm going to place it on top of the meat. Okay, if you want a little bit more, you can. Okay, so now we have the meat and the soup, right? What you want to do is make sure that the wrapper is long enough to go over top of the filling, okay, from all sides. So having it 1 inch is great. All right, so you want to take your dominant hand and then keep it on top of the soup, okay? And then you want to take the hand that you're not dominant with, bring it about 1 centimeter away from the wrapper. And then now you want to pleat, so you want to fold it in an S shape. And then once you bring the pleat into the center, you want to squeeze it at the top. Same again, keep moving about 1 centimeter away from the center, and every time you pleat, you want to squeeze it. Okay? And you want to do this about 15, 20 times. You see the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pleats already. So yeah, you want to do this quite a lot of times, and you just want to move the dumpling wrapper gently each time that you need to make it turn. Okay? And you want to be as gentle as possible because the gluten-free flour does not stretch. So make sure that you don't make any holes in the wrapper or else you have to start over again. Okay, so here we are with the last bit that we need to close the dumpling, right? So what you want to do, a lot of restaurants just actually kind of keep it open and make it smaller. But I kind of like to close it. So what you want to do is just to bunch the top together and squeeze it tight. And if there are any extra dough, you can just pinch the top off, okay? And then here's your first gluten-free soup dumpling. It is a process, so you have to make sure that you practice. All right, so now you remember that we lined our basket. We're just going to put the soup dumpling on top of the carrot, and then we're going to keep filling the soup dumpling as we go. So now we're on to our second one. Anybody have any questions? I'm going to make 4 with you, and then I'm going to see if you guys have any questions, and I'll try to answer them. There is a big difference with the gluten-free and the gluten-full dough. It's a lot less stretchy, so you have to make sure that you don't overfill it or else it cracks and you can't use the dough anymore. Okay? So I'm going to make 4, and then we're going to steam it for about 9 minutes. Okay, so if there's any cracks, you can just try to mend it with some extra dough before you start wrapping. Okay, so once again, the size of the wrapper is about the size of your palm. And then you want to start by putting the meat filling in the middle. You just want to get half a teaspoon of meat probably that will fit in the middle, or else it'll be too much and everything will be squirting out. You want to make sure that it's bunched up in the middle like a pretty nice round filling. And then you're going to spoon in your soup that's solidified on top. Okay, so now you're ready to wrap, and to make sure there's about 1 inch diameter around your filling. And then once again, I'm going to bring the dominant hand over the top and bring in the flour wrapper into the middle and squeeze. Again, squeeze, squeeze. You never want to pull, you just want to gather and squeeze. Gather and squeeze. Okay? And then gently turn the wrapper if needed. Gather and squeeze. Gather and squeeze. Gather and squeeze. And then you can finish it off in your palms when you get enough practice. Okay, and some people like to leave this whole, some people like to close it. I'm going to close it so I can keep as much soup as I can in here. Here you have your gluten-free soup dumpling. This is very exciting because a lot of places don't serve soup dumplings that are gluten-free. And you can make this at home, or later you can visit my shop and we're going to serve you some gluten-free soup dumplings. All right, let's do a few more together. Just to make sure that you have enough practice and I can steam them so we get to eat afterwards and you see what they look like at the end of the day. And I hope you're practicing now at home too. Okay. Gentle. I see a little bit of hole, so I'm just gonna do this. Okay, just make sure that the size is right, a little bit bigger than my palm, and then a little bit of filling in the middle, be about half a teaspoon of filling. Spoon in my soup. This one is a lot of soup. Whoopsie. Okay, my soup should rest on top of the meat. And then we're going to do this again. Make sure the wrapper goes directly on top. And then we're going to bunch it together by gathering it into the middle and squeezing every time. Have a few left, and then we can close it all together. Okay? Great. Soup dumpling done. Hooray to gluten-free floured soup dumplings. And we're going to make one more together, and then I'm going to turn on the steamer basket, the steamer water, and we're going to steam these, and we're going to make a few more together while we steam it. Okay. And if it sticks to your board or your rolling pin, go ahead and add more oil, okay? That's what helps a gluten-free dough. Okay, one last one before we steam. It's a little bit too much. Okay, just half a teaspoon. You want to add a little bit of a platform there for the soup to rest on. The soup's going on top. I like to add a lot of soup into my wrapper. And then now we're going to start doing this again. Pleat, 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 and then you can turn the dumpling as you keep pleating. So it goes all around in the circle. Oops. And then as you get more practice, the faster you can do this. And this one has a lot of extra dough. You just prick that off. And here you go again. And now I'm going to steam these guys. And you want to follow me to the steamer. Alright, so I have my steamer with the rack. And then I'm going to put this on the steamer. And then I'm going to close it. And we're going to turn this on high. And then we're going to go back to the kitchen here. And I need to set the timer for about 9 minutes. And during the 9 minutes, I'm ready for any questions that you guys have, or I can keep making more dumplings. And if you don't know where to buy these flours, you don't have to worry, because what we're going to do at TrueNosh, we're going to come out with a gluten-free dumpling flour mix that you can buy on our website as well as on our future gluten-free, sugar-free store. And it's already pre-mixed for you. And there's also a source of fiber too because of the psyllium husk, which is great. Okay, so what you can do with the flour is also make pot stickers, which is what we also did. You can go on my website as well as our Skillshare platform. You can make pot stickers with this dumpling flour. This is the dumpling flour mix that we made for our soup dumplings as well as our pot stickers one. And all the flours that we use today, including the psyllium husk, is inside. That's why we can say that there's some fiber in the dumpling flour, which is really good. And you don't have to worry about all the extra work to find all the crazy different gluten-free flours, and we already have it in the mix. And in the mix, every half cup is 20 dumplings, every quarter cup is 10 dumplings, and we don't have to make too much at a time. And I'm going to continue wrapping. When the timer goes off, I'm going to show you what the soup dumpling looks like. Oh, and we also have to make the dipping sauce. So usually it's a dark Ching Kong vinegar used in a dipping sauce for the soup dumplings, but most of that has wheat or gluten in it. What we're going to do today is to add some apple cider vinegar and some tamari into a little dipping sauce ramekin, and I'm going to shave in a little bit of ginger. So let me just shave in some ginger first. Okay, just a little bit. And then I have a little bit of tamari, just a little bit to get it some color. Tamari is gluten-free. Okay, so 1 teaspoon of tamari, and then we're going to do 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. Okay, and there's our gluten-free dipping sauce for our soup dumplings. All right, and we'll be ready to eat. Also, you can look at my website to look at other dipping sauces. We have a gluten-free oyster style sauce that's vegan and also made without sugar. We also have a hoisin sauce made with caramelized onions, sweet potatoes, and apples with black garlic. We also have a black bean sauce with ginger and black beans. There's about 4 minutes left before we can open the steamer, so I'm just going to keep rolling until we can reveal the dumplings to you. And you guys can start practicing more at home and become soup dumpling pros, even with a gluten-free flour mix. And I hope you guys enjoyed, and feel free to ask me questions now by putting in the comments. If you don't have any questions or feel like you don't know what to ask, you can always email me if you come up with any questions later on. I'm going to make a few more here in my palm. And you can do this too once you get enough practice. Okay, so some soup dumplings here. And the soup goes on top. And then we gather that guy, the wrapper, into the middle. All right, I like to do it near my fingertips because it's easier. And now you can do it in the palm of your hands once you get enough practice. All right, there's your soup dumpling. We can steam it with the next batch of soup dumplings. I'm going to prick off the top. And another minute, and it should be all done. There are a lot of ways of wrapping soup dumplings, and this is just one way. So if you guys want to experiment with a different way, go ahead. There's all sorts of videos on YouTube, but I think not many that are gluten-free, all right? So if you want to watch this video, it'll be on our Facebook page for the next 48 hours. And if you want to subscribe to our Skillshare platform, we also have a few cooking classes that are also all gluten-free on there as well. Seems like nobody has any questions. There's only one person watching. All right, so our timer's gone off, and I'm going to take the top off of our steamer. Woo! And then there you go. Our soup dumplings are ready to eat. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a chopstick and have fun with doing some soup and dumplings on your own. And I hope you guys enjoyed the class today. All right, so I'm going to sign off now. Please let me know if you have any questions. If you don't have any now, just email me, info@TrueNosh.com, and we'll see you again next week. Thanks for watching.